Hey, what is up guys? So we are going to be going over the best cards in the new Rise of the True Dragon structure deck, as well as going over some of the small little combos and the deck playstyle, so you guys can figure out if you want to pick some of these up for yourself and find out if this is the right deck for you. But anyways, the full list, I'll link it down below in the description box if you guys want to read every single card. I'll briefly go over the cards that are going to be viable, like for example Card Trooper, just a decent little card, and some other cards are just good in other decks. But I kind of want to go over like the best cards for you guys first, and then we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about some of the smaller cards, and then we'll talk about, if the deck is, the right deck for you. But overall, what are my original thoughts on this deck? It's a pretty decent structure deck. Like, you can pick up 3 of these and have a decent deck. Is it going to be, the next Monarchs where you can pick up, 3 structure decks, add in a few cards, and have it be like a tier 1 deck? I don't think it's necessarily going to be like the best deck, but it's definitely a deck that can compete with some of these other decks like Monarchs, like Burning Abyss, like, all of those decks that are really popular, like Cosmos. A lot of those decks, this can technically compete with them, but I don't think it's on the same level. I think it's just a step backwards. It's not on the same level, but you guys can go ahead and let me know your thoughts on that down below in the comment section. But anyways, yeah, let's go ahead and go over like the best cards, and we'll talk about some of the other small cards like Card Trooper and like, Aaron and stuff like that. But anyways, let's go ahead and jump into some of the foil cards out of this, and then again we'll talk about all the smaller stuff afterwards and some of like the little basic combos and core concepts of the new structure deck. So anyways, the two main boss monsters in the deck are going to be Divine Dragon Lord Felgran and the Archbrave Dragon. So I'm going to explain some of the basic concepts and combos of the deck. First off, so Archbrave Dragon, if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can banish as many face-up spell and trap cards your opponent controls as possible. And if you do, this card gains 200 attack and defense for each card banished. Once per turn during the standby phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there the last turn, you can target one level 7 or 8 dragon type monster in your graveyard except for itself, and then special summon it. So the whole deck and the whole emphasis around this whole deck is special summoning from the graveyard. There's a lot of things that can counter this. There's like Prison Guard, there's a lot, like Vanity's Emptiness stops everything, but there are certain cards, I think it's like Royal Prison or something like that, where it just says your opponent cannot special, or neither player can special summon monsters from the graveyard. At that point, this deck absolutely will lose. It's like a specific Vanity's Emptiness for this type of a deck where it special summons specifically from the graveyard. I think there's a card is it No Entry? You guys let me know. I know there's a bunch of other cards that say your opponent can't special summon from the graveyard, things along the lines of that. So if it becomes a meta deck, you already have cards that really hard to counter this in the side deck. But nonetheless, yeah, that's the basic core concepts of the deck. And let's go ahead and go over the other boss monster real quick, which is the Divine Dragon Lord Felgran. So if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can target one monster your opponent controls or in their graveyard and banish it. And if you do, this card gains attack and defense equal to the banished monster's original level and rank times 100. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can target one level 7 or 8 dragon type monster in the graveyard except for itself and special summon it. So you can kind of see the basic core concepts of this deck. The basic core concepts, which we'll get into later, is basically equipping them, and then once they go to the graveyard, you can special summon them. You get out this guy. This guy basically runs over most things in the game. It's got 28 attack, and then it gets to banish a monster that your opponent controls or in the graveyard, and then it pretty much lets you run over most of the things in the game because it's already got 28 attack, and if you hit most things, you're going to be, upwards of 3,000 plus attack, which generally gets you over most of the things in the game. And then on top of that, it has that effect where you're going to special summon a dragon at level 7 or 8 dragon type monster from your graveyard. Usually you go for Archbrave Dragon. Archbrave Dragon actually brings out this card in general anyways. And this card has that effect once per turn during the standby phase. If it was sent to the graveyard because it was sent there the last turn, you can target one. So you can see the core concept is to get out Divine or special summon it for whatever reason that you can special summon it through, like Call the Haunted, Oasis. There's another card that we'll talk about later that lets you bring it out really quick. But the core concept is to get out this card, run over something, bring out this card. Once this card dies, you bring back Lord Felgran again, and then you kind of see the internal core concept of its little engine right here. So yeah, Divine Dragon Lord Felgran and Archbrave Dragon are its main boss monsters in the deck. But let's go ahead and go over some of the small monsters and also the cards that are just good in the deck. So first off, we have the Dragon Knight of Creation. This is one of the super rare cards. Some of the cards I'm just kind of going over just because they're foil, and I know some people, they're just card collectors. They want foil versions of cards, so this is going to be one of them. So it gets to increase its level by 4 during your opponent's turn only. It's only got 1800 attack, but when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you can send one level 7 or 8 dragon monster from your deck to the graveyard. And then in addition to that, you can send one card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one level 7 or 8 dragon monster in your graveyard, send this card to the graveyard, and if you do special summon that monster, you can only use this effect once per turn. So even though you gotta go minus by sending one card from your hand to the graveyard, you can technically mitigate that minus, because if you're sending Archbrave or the Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand, you have that access to the small little internal loop there, or like little core concept of its engine. So that's the point of this card, and it's a decent card. It's not like the best. If it was just like you can distribute it and then special summon, it'd be much better in one sense, but for the most part, I think you can, again, mitigate some of the minuses in your hand, because they don't do too much in your hand anyways. You want them in the graveyard, so it definitely does support how the deck wants to play. Next up, one of the better cards of this, and this one is going to be a common card actually, but it's a really good card nonetheless. It has that effect if it's normal or special, you get to equip a level 7 or 8 dragon-type monster from your hand or deck to this card. While this card is an equipped card, or equipped with an equipped card, it is unaffected by other monsters' effects. It's only got 700 attacks, so that's kind of small, but you contribute this card and one other monster, then target level 7 or 8 dragon-type monster in your graveyard and special summon it. Some people were trying originally, like when the deck first came out, they were mixing in heretics with this, because when the heretics are attributing this card and another monster, yeah, you can maybe don't go for that build though. That was a really old build, but I just wanted to mention it because, you know, the deck has evolved since then. We got way more support, but yeah, you can attribute this card and another monster to get that effect. But for the most part, it's a decent little card in the deck. And again, if you're just getting 3 copies of the structure deck, this is an excellent card in the deck. If you guys didn't know, Blue Eyes is actually doing pretty well in the OCG, and we'll go over some of the cards that they can play in that deck. But Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, just overall one of the best dragon monsters in the game. Real simple effect, just you can special summon from your hand by banishing a dragon-type monster you control, and then once per turn you get to special summon one dragon-type monster from your hand or graveyard, except for the same copy of itself. Yeah, this card is just probably one of the better dragon cards in the game. Next up we have Red Eyes Wyvern. It's just a decent card. It's not like the best card, but I figured to mention because it's a decent card, again, if you're just getting 3 copies of the structure deck. It's definitely one of the best cards if, again, you're just getting 3 copies of the structure deck and you're trying to build a deck. It is a decent card. So if you don't normal summon or set, and it's during the end phase, you can banish the card from your graveyard to special summon one Red Eyes monster from your hand, except for Red Eyes Beatrick, which is not that big of a deal because you usually don't go for that. Usually you'll go for the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. Keep in mind though, guys, you can't normal summon or set, but you can still special, so this could be like another, like, just another play. It's got decent attack too, so it's not like a bad card at all. And it is banishing it from the graveyard, so you don't technically need to even have it on board. You can just send it to the graveyard. A lot of the stuff in the structure deck, the way it's structured, is to just send a lot of cards to the graveyard, which we'll get into later on. There are reprints of the White Dragon and Black Dragon, so that's really good. These are just 2 really good cards in general. At one point, these were actually pretty meta. Mixing them in with the Lightsworn Shaddolls, or just the Shaddolls in general, used to play a lot of copies of these, just because they're just decent cards. It allows you to access to just going into rank 4s and synchroing up and adding free cards. Definitely good stuff indeed. Next up, Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn. So again, a lot of stuff just sends stuff to the graveyard. So this card is just a decent card in general. Just a lot of different decks can make use of Raiden, Hand of the Lightsworn. Not only Lightsworn, Dragon, anything that just wants to send stuff to the graveyard. It's always been just a popular card, just because it sends 2 and then during end phase it sends another 2. Excellent card indeed. And then on top of all of that, it is also a tuner, so this card is definitely pretty good. Going into some of the newer cards that are coming out in the structure deck that are really good, like Runes of the Divine Dragon Lord. So it's got a long effect. Let's go ahead and go over it real quick. So if a monster is special summoned except from the graveyard, while you control level 7 or 8 dragon type monster, that face-up special summon monster has its effects negated until the end of this turn, even if this card leaves the field. Once per turn, you can send one other face-up card you control to the graveyard to special summon one Dragon Lord token that's Dragon type light level 1, 0 attack and defense. If this card is in your graveyard, you can send a level 7 or 8 Dragon type monster from your hand or face-up on your field to the graveyard to add this card in your hand. So it's a really decent stun card. Because, yeah, just every monster that was special summoned has its effect negated until the end of this turn, which usually allows you to run over them because most of the dragons, again, they have decent amount of attack and they all boost up their attack, like Archbrave Dragon and the Divine Dragon Lord Felgrand. So pretty much that means you're going to be able to run over the monster, and it's got a little effect where it gets a token. It's okay, but for the most part, it's the stun card. Again, most decks in Yu-Gi-Oh that are good, they can stun, OTK, or they're really resilient, or they can basically survive a long time. The Cosmos would be an excellent example of where someone dies, comes back, someone dies, it comes back. You know, that makes a deck really good. Next up, we have one of the best cards out of this is Return of the Dragon Lord. So, target level 7 or 8 dragon monster in graveyard, special summon it. If a dragon type monster you control will destroy a battle by card effect, you can banish the card from your graveyard instead. So, basically a monster reborn for the deck. Well, I mean, you can't get your opponent stuff, but really insane card. You get a special summon, like 7 or 8 dragon monster, no downsides, no like effect where it's like, oh, you can only activate one on return, or you can't conduct battle phase, or you can't special summon anything else except for dragons. No downsides at all to this card. And then to make it even better, you banish it and it can protect a dragon. That is just crazy good. Excellent, excellent card. Again, one of the best cards out of this structure deck. This is mainly the card that a lot of decks have been using. Even OCG has been using this card in a lot of different decks, just because it doesn't have to be like a Blue Eyes or a Felgrand. It can be anything. And then lastly, we have just a breakthrough skill. Just a decent card in general. A lot of different decks can make good use of this card. But anyways, there are other few cards that we can kind of talk about that I think are decent, that are kind of noteworthy of mentioning, that are kind of small, like Aaron Lightsworn Monk. This was a secret rare. It was like $30 at one point. Card Trooper's a decent card. There's also Tradian Foolish Burial, Wingbeat of a Dragon. We can kind of go over this card. This card's decent. I don't think anyone's going to play 3 copies of. It's a fairly old card, but it's only like a 10-cent card anyways. But you return a level 5 or higher dragon monster you control to the hand, and if you do, you just draw all spawn trap cards on the field. It's a decent card again. It's just an older card. There's reinforcement of the army, which is always a good common to have, but it's not at 3 anymore in the TCG. I mean, it was crazy. We had that card at 3 for so long. But there's also Needlebug Nest. If you guys didn't know, actually this card actually might want to be one of the better cards out of this, because if you guys didn't know, at one point this was a $5 common, but it's just send the top 5 cards from your deck to the graveyard. So you're able to just send random stuff. You know, Breakthrough Skill obviously has a good effect, and then also sending a lot of the dragons get effects in the graveyards. Well, when they're special summoned from the graveyard, you don't really want them in your hand anyways. So it's just a decent little card. And there's Oasis and Call of the Haunted, so you get both. So it's basically like 2 copies of Call of the Haunted, or well, I mean, one of them does special summon defense mode, but for the most part, it's very similar. I think there's a lot of decent cards in here. There's Eclipse Wyvern, that's also small, like noteworthy mentioning card. But overall, my thoughts on this, and it's coming out, by the way, guys, next week on the 8th of July, or I guess this upcoming week if you're watching this at that time. But yeah, July 8th is the release date for the NA release. It's different from the OCG one, but for the most part, the core cards are the same. And overall, what are my thoughts on this? And a lot of you guys always ask me every time there's a new structure deck, is this a good structure deck? Is this going to be meta? And I think it's definitely a good structure deck. It can definitely compete with some of the stuff, but is it going to consistently beat, Cosmos, or is it going to be able to beat something like Monarchs? Those are the 2 more popular decks right now, and I would say they can compete with them. They're not bad. But certain scenarios, you're just going to need extra stuff that you're going to have to buy. Vanity's Empty is an excellent card. Solemn Warning, excellent card. But for the most part, I think it's a decent structure deck. I don't think it's the best deck. It's not like Tier 0, one of the best decks. But I think overall, if you're looking to invest into a deck that can definitely be able to compete for the price, I think Monarchs, you're going to have to pick up some extra stuff, of course, to compete, whether you're playing this or playing Monarchs. I think that this deck is definitely a decent one, but it's not going to be the best one. It's not going to be a deck that you'll be seeing time after time being super competitive, but I think that you can be competitive with the deck. It has the ability to beat some of these decks. But you guys can let me know how you feel down below in the comment section. Do you guys think that this structure deck is good? Are you guys going to be picking this up? You guys know that I'm always going to be opening these up and showing you guys the cards, just to show you guys the the different rarities, and also just to show you guys what they look like in person and just open it up. But I think it's decent. I'll be getting some of these, and I'll do an unboxing of them. But like I said, I think it's pretty good, and it has a little bit of potential. It depends on what other support we get, because they're supporting Blue Eyes and Red Eyes a lot. Maybe we're short a few cards off of potentially making this deck, potentially meta. And I think, again, these 2 cards are really good. Being able to banish is always better than destroying it and sending it to the graveyard. So they definitely did recognize that. And then, again, you have one of the best cards for the Dragons right now, Return of the Dragon Lords. Really good card. But yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts on it down below in the comment section. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'm signing out.